last week, so it'd be like nice, oh, it's fine last week, so this week it's fine, but it's not like that. It's like I'm still even more terrified this week than I was last week, but I don't know why. But as I prepare, as we prepare messages, I wish I just had an outline of a series I could teach on or whatever it was, but it's not like that. I just have to say, Lord, what do you want to bring to your people? And trust that He'll put something on my heart that will encourage you guys and be timely for your lives right now. And as I was sitting there, and when Robin got up, did she leave? She's not here, huh? She went out. But I'm so grateful that she got up and she shared, because what she shared on that verse we'll touch on today, and it's about running the race with endurance, about running the Christian race. It's so easy to run for a little while and then to stop. It's so easy to run quick and then to get tired and to grow weary. But the Christian life is not a race, a sprint. It's not 100 meters. It's a marathon. And somewhere the Lord is encouraging me and encouraging you guys this morning to run with endurance and to take one step at a time, to not look too far ahead, but to just run in step with what the Lord wants us to do. And I remember when I was in high school, I was a sophomore. I was 15 years old. And I was playing football, and I really wanted to get faster for football the next season, so I decided to run track. And I tried out for the track team. I did the 100-meter, the 4x100. I loved it. I did really well, and we had a good team. And then towards the end of the season, the coach said, I want you to run the 800. He's like, you're tall. You'd be a good 800 runner, So I said, fine. So it was the week before the championship meet, And so he had me train a little bit. We just ran through the forest, but I never had actually run an 800 meter. But he kind of put all his chips on me. He's like, this 15-year-old sophomore going against 18 and 19-year-olds in the championship meet. I'm putting you in there. I want you to run the 800. I was like, okay, so I had full confidence I was going to do well. I was like, okay, he thinks I'm good. I'm good. The 100, I'm really good. So, okay. So I just remember getting ready for that race. I was so confident, and I just came out to such a fast start, and I was running. I felt like I was gliding. And I remember I was so far ahead of the guys that I was thinking, not only am I going to come in first place easily, but I think I might break a record or something. I remember I was just like, oh my goodness, I'm flying, I couldn't believe it. And then I came around, in the 800, the third turn is where, you see what you're made of, because that's when you start getting tired. Came around the third turn, I was okay. And then the last turn, my body just wasn't doing what I was telling it to do anymore. It was just slowing down. I was like, what is going on? No. And it just started to slow down. And then all of a sudden, the record-breaking run just kind of disappeared. I was like, that's not going to happen. And then all of a sudden, one guy just went past me. I'm like, oh, no, I'm going to get second place. No way. And then I was running, and then all of a sudden, shoo, shoo, shoo. And by the time I finished the race, I had come in dead last. I was dead last. It was terrible. I felt so bad, but I went from like this emotional roller coaster of thinking I was going to definitely get first place to coming in dead last. And it was just such a picture of me of our Christian lives. Like sometimes we can start out so well and we can run with such zeal, but that's not the race we're called to run. We're not running with everything. We're running a race of endurance, because life comes at us and things happen and situations and trials and all kinds of things that we have to just keep going forward sometimes. And sometimes when we're tired and weary, we just have to press on. And I've seen so many Christians over the years, and I'm sure we all know, people who somewhere the Lord has touched, and they had such zeal and such fire, and they're getting into the Word, and they're going to Bible studies, and then they're leading a Bible study, and then 6 months later, you're like, where are they? They're gone. They just didn't want to do it anymore. I had a friend in San Diego, and he loved the Lord. He had such zeal for the ministry. And I remember we'd spend time with them, and they'd be like, what's your ministry? What's your ministry? And we're like, we don't have a ministry. I don't know. And so he had all kinds of things going on. I remember he would stay up till like 4 or 5 in the morning every night, just making connections with people. And he was always going. And he had such a zeal for the Lord, which was good, which I was encouraged by. But somewhere along the way, I don't know what happened. He grew tired. He grew discouraged. He started a church, and the church was going well, but then I don't know what happened. He just ran out of steam. And then he opened himself up to, at the end of the day, his marriage fell apart, the church fell apart, and the guy's not even serving the Lord anymore. And here was a guy who, he really loved the Lord. He was an encouragement to me when I was young, but he didn't finish the race. And the Lord is encouraging you and I to finish the race, to finish it well, and to run with endurance. I just want to go to Hebrews 12. And this is just what Robin just shared. Right? That's why I'm so encouraged. I was finished when she shared it, but I just want to read that one little spot. It says, 12, second half there, it says, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. And there's a race that is set before you and I as Christians. The Lord has a race for each one of us. And we have to first accept that race and then run with endurance in that race. You know, we had a friend of ours visiting yesterday. He's from South Africa. He was a pastor over there. And 5 years ago, he's pastoring a church over there, but 5 years ago, he had a stroke. And it was pretty bad. He almost died. And, it's hard for him to speak. He speaks pretty well, but it's still hard for him and hard for him to walk and all that. But you can feel from the man, there's such a joy in his heart. And you can feel from him that he totally accepts where he's at. And yes, we have faith for the Lord. We have faith that he can heal him. We always have faith. When someone's sick, when someone is going through something, we have faith. But somewhere he accepts the road that's before him right now, knowing that the Lord in his time can calm the waves, but somewhere you can feel him. We had such a wonderful time with him. He's happy, he's making jokes, but it's amazing how people have an aroma that they can be going through such a hard time, but somewhere in the middle of it, because they accept it, it carries that life of Christ in it. It's amazing. And I just want us to look at this morning how do we get discouraged? How do we get tired? Why do we want to stop sometimes? Because we all do sometimes. We're going through stuff and you get tired, like me running, you're just going, you think you're well, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm tired. I want to stop. Like Robin said, like she's having a hard week and you just grow weary. And I think one of the biggest things for me that causes me to get discouraged, that causes me want to stop, is my mind. Because we can go through things and we can want to understand and want to know exactly why, exactly how, exactly what, why did it happen, why is it going like this? And we want it to make sense in our minds, but the Lord isn't looking to make it make sense in our minds. And we'll look at Isaiah 55. It can be our enemy sometimes. We sit and think about it and piece it apart and how can we prevent and why did it happen? But somewhere to just have that trust. And I love this because it's so straightforward. Isaiah 55 verse 8 says, for my thoughts are not your thoughts, nor are my ways your ways. So how I think things should go are definitely not how the Lord is going to have them go, because his thoughts are not my thoughts. And I want so bad sometimes. I'm like, Lord, if you just made it happen like this, it would be so nice, but that doesn't matter how I think it should happen. His thoughts are completely different, and the way he works is so incredibly different than what we think and how we think it should be. And the boxes that we build in our lives of our Christian lives should look like this, or our spiritual lives, how we grow, all these things we put boxes around, but the Lord isn't interested in our little box that we put ourselves in. He's interested in doing what he wants to do in our lives. And it's an amazing testimony of a little boy in the church. We're a part of a network of churches and we're close with, guys all over the world, but there's a church in Paris who Stephen Gashengo was just here, and he went and shared in that church after this one. But there's a little boy there, and he's dealt with kidney issues for his whole life, really bad kidney problems. He actually just had a kidney transplant. He's very fragile in his health. But he's a little boy. He's so full of joy. He's such a good little guy. And recently, I don't know if it was a couple months ago or just recently, he had this little growth on his foot. Something was happening. It was a very painful growth on the side of his foot. And the doctors tried to give him medication, but nothing worked. And they were getting kind of desperate because he was wearing sandals because the pain was there. So the sandals were okay. But then in Paris, we know it snows, it gets cold, and we're coming into winter. So you have to wear shoes. And he couldn't wear shoes because it was too painful, So they were in a meeting with Stephen Gashengo not too long ago. And he asked his mom, he said, can he pray for me, for my foot, for it to go away, And she's like, yeah, of course. Just wait till the end and then we'll go forward. And then the end happens. People are going forward for prayer. And then she says, would you like for him to pray for you now? You want to come? And he said, no. I already prayed to Jesus and he heard me, so I don't need to go forward anymore. And it was amazing. And so the next day, that little thing on his foot, or not so little, turned black. And they were like, what is going on with that? That's weird. And then the next day after that, the thing falls off and it's gone, completely gone. And they took him back to the hospital. They could show the doctors, and the doctors in Paris, they're the ones that they work with, not Christians at all, And the doctors were like baffled, and the parents, Mark and Clara, they're amazing people in the church there. But they were telling the doctors like that was God, that was only God, it was a miracle. And the doctors getting all upset, like, oh, wait, you want me to believe in God now because this happened, and getting all frustrated, and because they couldn't explain it. The doctor's bringing people in like, look, it's gone, and the Mark just turns to the doctor and he says, maybe that happened just so God could show you that he's real. And it's like, and it finishes me, because I wouldn't have reached the doctor like that. I would have just said, hey, doctor, here's a EvangeCube tract, read it and be saved, like that's so much easier, just here, read this little pamphlet, a little Christian comic, evangelism tool, and then you'll be saved. But the Lord is planting seeds in that person how he wants to. And I wouldn't want to make a kid go through all that and all that happened, all that. But that just shows us that the Lord's ways are not our ways. And he's doing what he wants to do. And he's reaching people how he wants to reach them. And all those things, we look at sometimes difficulties and trials and hardship that, it's just tough, it's just tough. But the Lord turns it around for his good, and he works it for his good. And that's such a perfect example. And let's go to Proverbs 3. So we know this verse. We all have it on our refrigerators at home. So it's Proverbs 3:5. It says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. So simple, yet so profound. It's either you lean on your own understanding and you lean on things making sense to you and you lean on you being able to digest and figure out why and how, or you trust the Lord. It's two separate things. And the Lord is calling us to be a people who trust him, who walk with him, who take one step at a time, who don't waver, but who just allow him to do what he wants to do in our lives. And my kids are getting to the age, and with young kids, sometimes they have so many questions, why is this, why is that, why, what's going to happen later today, and what's happening then, and what are we having for breakfast, and then what are we having for lunch, and then what are we having for dinner, and you're just like, just relax, you don't need to know the whole day and everything that's going on, but somewhere, just trust me that I have a good plan for you, that I have your day set out before you, that you will do good things, you will grow, you will learn, but you don't need to know everything we're doing, and you don't need to understand everything we're doing. You just need to trust me. And I tell my kids that. I say, if you can learn to trust me now, then you can learn to trust the Lord when you're older. Because that's what we're doing. We're raising our kids to be able to trust the Lord in the same way they can trust us. And I just remember like 6-7 years ago, I got this like stomach illness and digestive illness, and I didn't know why it happened. The doctors told me, we have no idea what caused it. We don't know what's going on. It made me so like lethargic, and made me feel so sick, and it was terrible. And I never, like, at the end of the day, I never resolved, like, oh, this is why it happened, this is what happened. I never understood why the whole thing happened. It was like this whole big thing. I had to be on a special diet for like 2 years where I couldn't eat any, like pizza or anything good, It was hard. That was the hardest part. I had to eat, like, vegetables and fruit and, like, chicken, and that's it, And I was like, oh, that was the main suffering. But I didn't know why that whole thing happened. But somewhere in it, it's like I drew close to the Lord, and the Lord used it to strengthen my relationship with him. And if it's just for that, I'm so grateful. And at the end, there was no resolution, It was like, it just happened. But And I'm fine with that. I'm fine with not knowing why and how and understanding every single thing that happens in my life, because we're not called to have to understand all these things. Because I believe there's like a turmoil always in us where if we need to have the answers all the time, we'll never be at peace. We always need to know. We always need to know. We always need to know. Why, how. How can we ever come to a place of being at peace if we always need to have the answer? But the security comes in coming to him, and he will give us the rest, and he will give us the peace. And let's go to Philippians 4, verse 6. This is the other refrigerator magnet below the other one. Let's see. Philippians. I love this verse. This is like my favorite verse because there's so much to be anxious about. There's so much to be anxious about, but the Lord knows that. In verse 6 it says, "Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving let your requests be known to God." And this is the best part. "The peace of God, which surpasses all understanding," which has nothing to do with your understanding, which is beyond your understanding, "will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." And that's like when we come to him, he puts a peace in our heart. He doesn't mean we have to understand, but there's a protection for us in knowing that he's in control and trusting him. It actually guards your heart, because it's the worst place to just be like, to be in a panic and not know why, not know how, but to just have a peace in the Lord and coming to him and bringing our requests and bringing our anxiety to him and bringing the things that are burdening to us. He gives us that peace that surpasses all that. It's absolutely incredible. And, our goal is the same. Our ending is the same. We're going to be like Jesus. We're going to heaven. We're Christians. We're born again Christians. But each one of our races, each one of our roads is very different. But we have to know where we are going. I don't know how many of you guys like to jog. And I don't want to offend you, but I don't jog too much. People are like, "You want to go for a jog?" And I'm like, "Jog where?" Just jog. I'm like, "Well, we're going to bring a ball or something, or what are we going to do?" But it's good. I know we jog to get in shape and stuff, but I have to run towards something. I have to have a ball or have, something to do, And I think the Lord is calling us not to be Christians who jog, You can jog. I'm not saying don't jog. But not to be Christians who jog, not to be Christians who I'm just running just to run, I'm just running just to run, but to be Christians who are running towards something, running towards a prize, running towards a goal, running to win, running towards being like Christ. You look at there's marathons that are going on. There's a guy who broke the record for, under 2 hours. And you think about that marathon, it's like all those people racing, they know exactly where they're going. They know where the finish line is. And that guy who beat the record, I promise you, he knew exactly where he was going. Because to run a race effectively, you have to know exactly where you're going. That's because every turn and everything, you have to just run it efficiently, The other day, it was last Sunday, I was helping out. My daughter was having a race, like a healthy kids race. And they run through the park, and the race outlay was very unclear. It was like, where do they go? And they actually had me help, and I stood in one area to help guide the kids. But I just saw the kids come around over this bridge, and they were running, and I was standing kind of afar off. They couldn't see me. And when they crossed the bridge, they all kind of scattered, and they didn't know where they were going. They're like, and I was like, "Hey, over here, come on." And they were like, "Oh, okay." And then they ran, and then they went around another corner, and they're like, "Where?" And I'm like, go that way. So, but it just showed me how can you run effectively? How can you have a good time? How can you run well if you don't really know where you're going? We have to know where we're going. Let's go to 1 Corinthians. Chapter 9. And this backs up what I said about not jogging. It says, 9 verse 24, It says, "Do you not know that those who run in a race all run, but one receives a prize? Run in such a way that you may obtain it." And it says, the little side note, or win it. Run that you win the prize. Run. And we have to know what's ahead. We have to know where we're going. You know, I remember one time I was driving on the freeway in San Diego, and we were going to a doctor's appointment down south, and it was like a 40-minute drive, and it was early in the morning. And if any of you know like LA freeways or San Diego freeways, it's like they had like 6 lanes, and then they scribbled them all out, and then they put 8 lanes, and they scribbled them all out, and they put like 12 lanes where there should be 6, you know, so they're so small. And not only that, all the areas where there used to be lanes, they just kind of like grind it off and put this black stuff on it, but so you can still kind of see them, you know. And in the daylight, you can tell it's not a problem, or at night because the reflectors. But this morning it was wet, and the sun was coming over the mountain like that and shining on the road. And all I saw, I was driving, and there was a little curvy part, and there was a car behind me here and a car there. All I could see was every single line that was ever on that road. It was like the reflection was on there, so I couldn't tell where I was going. I was like, oh my goodness, like I thought I was going to crash, because if this guy goes straight and I turn, or I turn and this guy turns, and we're going to hit each other, you know. So I panicked for a second, and then I just looked up like that. And when I looked up, it was like the glare was here, but I could see the road ahead. I could see the lines, and I was able to drive because I lifted my eyes up. And it's like that in our Christian life sometimes. Sometimes we're driving, and everything is so messy in front of us, or everything doesn't make sense, or everything is like, I don't know what's what or where or how. But if we just lift our eyes up, and we see where we're going, and we see what's ahead, and we just know that this is where the Lord is taking me, it can bring us a rest and a peace and a safety. Because sometimes what's happening right now doesn't make sense, and we don't know how to cope. Yeah. And if we read in 25, continuing in that same chapter, "And everyone who competes for the prize is temperate in all things. Now they do it to obtain a perishable crown, but we for an imperishable crown. Therefore I run thus, not with uncertainty," like those kids coming around the corner there. "Thus I fight, not as one who beats the air, but I discipline my body and bring it into subjection, lest when I have preached to others, I myself should become disqualified." It's amazing. We're running towards the image of Christ, to be like him, for our lives to be given to him, for us to be comforted in the same way that comfort others, in the same way that he comforts us. We're running towards a place where we're changing, we're being molded into his image. We're running to a place to where the Lord can use us to be a blessing to other people. It's like we know where we're going. We're going to the life of Christ. We're not just running because we've just been born again and we're just waiting till heaven, but we're running a race for the Lord to change and use us as he sees fit. As we're walking in his will, as we're walking in his plan, the Lord will make things clear. And let's go to 2 Timothy. And it's amazing how the Lord has a way of making things clear. You know, we have questions sometimes, but in the right time, he'll make things clear. And we'll look back and we'll see, you know, like little Liam, that little boy, like when you're in it, you don't know sometimes. You just like, wow, you know, what's going on, how? But then when you look back after all that has happened, you say, Lord, how do I question you? Every time something happens, I question you, and I wonder why, and I wonder how. But you're so faithful every single time to show your faithfulness, to turn it for your good, to work it for your good. And I think the Lord just wants to bring us to that place where we can just really trust him. And we can run the race that's set before us, and we can run it with endurance. And in 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 3. It says, "You therefore must endure hardship as a good soldier of Jesus Christ. No one engaged in warfare entangles himself with the affairs of this life, that he may please him who enlisted him as a soldier." So if you're in a war, if you're in a race, that's what you're worried about, not all the other things that are going on. And also, if anyone competes in athletics, he is not crowned unless he competes according to the rules. And the rules of your life and the rules of my life is he's conforming us into his image, and he has that road of the cross for each one of us to deny ourselves, to take our cross, to follow him. Those are the rules of our lives as Christians, to be like Jesus. And somewhere that's our plumb line for us to compete according to the rules. And in verse 10 it says, "Therefore and Paul is saying, I endure all things for the sake of the elect, that they also may obtain salvation which is in Christ Jesus with eternal glory. For if we died with him, we shall also live with him. If we endure, we shall also reign with him. If we deny him, he will also deny us. If we are faithless, he remains faithful, for he cannot deny himself." Incredible. And over in 4:7 it says, Paul is saying, "I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith." Amazing. And I want to be able to say that to the Lord is, "Lord, my race was hard. I grew tired, but Lord, you sustained me. I came to you in my weakness. I came to you in my trouble, and you gave me strength to keep going. But Lord, help me to see that this life is a life of endurance. It's a road of endurance. When difficulties come, when situations come, Lord, help me to walk with endurance. Help me not to try to figure out, try to wonder why, try to have a solution. But Lord, just somewhere, Lord, help me to see and trust that because I belong to you, because I'm your child, Lord, you will work all these things for your good. I don't see how, I don't know how right now. I can't figure out how, but Lord, I don't need to know. I don't need to understand because you know what you're doing." And that's my prayer and my encouragement for you guys this morning is that let's just keep running the race, guys. Let's just keep taking one step at a time, and let's let the Lord do what he wants to do. And let's not be discouraged. Let's first accept what's before us, because we all have different things going on in our lives. We know, and we can all testify, there's difficult things ahead that we have faced, and there's many good things ahead too. It's not all bad. But somewhere to be able to run and not to lean on our own understanding, but to run the race that's set before us. And we'll see the Lord do miracles. We'll see him do amazing things. But somewhere, it's only by his grace that we can take one step at a time every single day. So this morning, let us just stand. That's all I have. Just simple, short. I hope it's an encouragement.